Okay. Alright. Everybody. Nobody's here yet, so I can talk shit about everyone. Okay. Let me put up the party finder. Wow. So empty today, huh? It's not much event today. I think because it's a Wednesday. Hump day, am I right, bruh? Actually, don't really care. Every day is the same to me, so it's like it doesn't really matter what day it is, to be honest. Bruh. Party finder up. Chill here. Don't know what I'm doing just yet, but let's see. Then I woke up quite early, so I managed to eat my breakfast before stream. I got my coffee down as well, which is fucking great. And then I also managed to take the little time I had to change my microphone stand because it was like incredibly broken. Now it's like back to how it looks like when I first bought it. I'm so glad. Guys, seriously, right? Every time, okay, I don't really listen back to my own stream because it's cringe as fuck for me. But sometimes when I have to like go through clips, and stuff, like just trying to find a funny clip for people and all that, I realize how fucking good my microphone is. And you have no idea how cheap my microphone is. It's like about $10 for the entire thing too, with the stand, with the clip-on table stand and the microphone itself. It's like about $10 to $12. Super fucking cheap. And then the most amazing part is that it sounds so good. Like it captures sound so well, and it captured my voice so well too. So that's one thing that I really appreciate. Definitely. Speaking of which, I'm just hanging out here waiting for people to come in. I'm gonna start reading at 11:10. I should do that. That was what I was doing before, like start reading at 11:10. Because usually there are people in here around this time and we will like chat a little bit. Sometimes I went over 11:10 because there's just like too much to talk about with like viewers and people who jumped in, trying to explain to them what I'm doing and all that. But today doesn't seem to be that day. It's just very empty. So I'm just gonna talk shit. Really, nothing much. You know what? Yesterday was a great day. I had my nails done. I know it doesn't sound like I'm a girly girl, but I don't know. I think getting your nails done is not really a girly girl thing. It's just a girl thing, right? And also the reason why I get my nails done is because I have such terrible anxiety that I keep peeling or biting my nails out. Getting the manicure definitely stopped me from doing that, like self-harm kind of thing. Feels good, man. My new nails are so shiny. The shiniest nail I've ever had, really. It's really fun. Speaking of which, I should update my whiteboard of my next appointment and all that. Just give me a moment. So bored. Oh, I'm going. And next week I'll be away. I think I told you guys already. Yes, most people aren't awake yet, but that's fine. I think I should start reading, maybe. No. I'm so lazy. Okay, today we're finishing Penance. But if there's any more requests of reading like short stories by Shirley Lim or poems, I will do that as well if I feel like it. Oh my god, it just reminds me. I'm going to Singapore. Oh shit. Never mind. Who cares, right? I'm going to Singapore for a week. And then I can't vape for a week. And it's very sad to me. Priorities, right? Can't vape. I'm sad. But it's okay. I'm gonna try to relax this time. But it's so hard. Oh, I'm getting a tattoo done as well. Hell yeah! I mean, not just one. I'm getting 3 tattoos done in a single fucking day. But it's by an apprentice, so I'm a bit worried. But today, for some good reason, uh, she posted that she's an apprentice, right? So I'm a bit worried because I've never seen her tattoo on a person before. So I'm like a bit worried, you know. But then today I saw her tattoo on someone. And it looks like it's quite good. I don't know, it looks like the lines are quite steady, I feel. So I shouldn't be too worried about it. Like, I I really like to give artists a chance to build their portfolios, especially when it comes to like tattoos, because basically letting them tattoo on my body when they are just apprentice, right? And I think I've gotten like, I mean, I don't think my current tattoo artist that I'm following is like an apprentice or anything. He's really good, but yeah, he's definitely using my body as a canvas to like try out many different styles of like tattoos, which is I don't mind, and I really appreciate it that she's being so creative with my tattoos. And yeah, I'm gonna get so many. I'm gonna get at least 4 tattoos this month. 3 in Singapore and 1 more locally. The one is a cover-up tattoo, so I really hope that one goes really well. because the tattoo that I'm trying to cover is like I've seen it every day for 4 years, and I hated it for like at least a while now, because it's just the previous tattoo artist that did this tattoo. She just doesn't want to do what I want to do, which is like minimalist, like similar to hand poke style, like more delicate. She went really hard at it, and then it just become really blurry and not nice now. I don't know. And it's not the style that I wanted as well. She kind of like talked me into it. So fuck yeah, I'm gonna cover it up definitely with something that I really like. Maybe I'll show you guys later. Anyway, enough chit chat talk. I'm going to start reading now, despite there's nobody here. It's fine. I know people are busy with their lives, and not everyone is as lifeless as I am. Something is wrong. Much better. Okay, guys, I'm gonna start now. One sip of tea, and we shall start to finish our book today. Today, we are reading Penance by Kanae Minato on the chapter 5 titled Penance. If it was my fault that all of you committed your crimes, then how should I do penance for that? Ever since the day I moved to that town, a place that was far more inconvenient to live in than I had ever imagined, all I wanted was to go back to Tokyo. The material inconveniences were, of course, hard to put up with, but worse was how close-minded the people were. They treated me as if I were some foreigner. Just going out shopping for something, I felt it. The eyes scanning me from top to bottom. People whispering, making fun of me. Oh, look at how dressed up she is. Maybe she's on her way to a wedding? At the supermarket, every time I asked if they had a particular item, they would cluck their tongue and make a comment like, "That's what these city types are like." It's not as if I was asking for something unusual. Beef shanks, camembert cheese, canned demi-glace sauce, fresh cream. Just asking for these items like this made them treat me like some stuck-up rich lady. Despite this, I did try to get closer to them, for my husband's sake. If he hadn't had such a high position, I doubt I would have tried so hard to fit in. But when you're the head of the newly built factory, you have a duty. I had to do my utmost to help make the townspeople accept the new Adachi manufacturing plant. You know about the neighborhood cleanup campaigns? I took part once. The new circular that made the rounds of the neighborhood said it was voluntary. I told the other wives at the Adachi company housing, but we should get involved in this kind of town events. I tried to get as many as I could to participate, but when we got to the local community center where everyone was together, the local people's attitude was unbelievable. "Oh, you ladies from the big cities don't have to trouble yourself with this kind of activity. How did you plan to help? All dressed up like that." That's the kind of thing they told us. And we had gone there in shirts and jeans. We didn't mind getting dirty, ready to help clean up the ditches of whatever. Not that the town people were wearing wartime Monpei work clothes or anything. Many of them had sweats, but there were a few younger people dressed like me. If I had on sweatpants, I wouldn't have been surprised if they made the same kind of comments. When everyone set off to clean up the neighborhood, we were told, "We can't get those delicate white hands dirty now, can we?" While the locals went off to cut weeds along the roadsides and the riverbank, we, the outsiders, were assigned to wash windows at the community center. I wasn't the only one upset with the local people's attitude. The other company's wives often exchanged complaints about it in the hallways of our housing complex. This gradually led to a feeling of solidarity among people who in the old factory had not associated much with each other. They started getting together regularly for tea parties and becoming better friends. But I hardly ever invited to these parties. Whenever the cake shop I loved back in Tokyo had a new kind of cake, my mother would send me some. And I tried inviting some of the wives in the company housing over to enjoy them. But it was never much fun. And afterward, those ladies didn't invite me to their own parties. This bothered me. Since I wanted to vent my own complaints about the town to someone and ask the other housewives about how they were handling cram school and lessons for their children and the like. But then, it occurred to me that it was only natural that they exclude me, since one thing they wanted to complain was about the company. Why on earth would they build a factory way out here? We just built a house in Tokyo for gosh sake. And just got an introduction to an excellent cram school program too. I didn't have to strain my ears to pick up on all their complaints. So within the closed-off world of the town, there was another insular world, and I was excluded from both. It wasn't like that when I lived in Tokyo. I've always had a lot of friends, and we would chat on, enjoy going to favorite boutiques and restaurants and attending plays and concerts. No one was so worn out with houseworks that they would talk about a special sale on eggs or anything. All my friends and I cared about was self-improvement. The ones who let me feel that happy, that content, were those friends I shared the best part of my life with. Through various channels, I've heard what happened with all of you from the murder down to the present. And though I can feel sorry, it's hardly fully sympathize or imagine your situation. It's hard to fully sympathize or imagine your situation. Why didn't these children dress up and play with friends or enjoy life? Put in your situation, I wonder what kind of life I would have led. I had a friend I had known since childhood. Perhaps because we attended a private school, I don't recall ever playing in the school grounds after school or on holidays. Instead, we played together at a nearby park. What if some strange man had appeared there, taken one of my friends and killed her? And if the murderer was never caught, would I have lived in fear for years after that? And if the murdered friend's mother cursed me, would that have constantly preyed on my mind? I don't think I would have held on to it as long as you four did. I lost a friend of mine too. There was a time I really blamed myself for it, thinking that it was my fault. But then, I told myself, I can't go on brooding over it forever. I've got to be happy. I decided to live my life with that kind of clear-cut attitude. I was 22 then, a little younger than all of you are right now. I got to be friends with Akie when I had just started my sophomore year in college in the spring. I was in the English department in the finishing school type of women's college. Most of the students, including me, had come up through an affiliated school system from elementary school straight into the college without having to worry about the entrance exam. But Akie was in the group from outside who had had to pass exams to matriculate. She mentioned her hometown once, and it had no famous tourist sites or well-known industry, and I had never heard of it before. I was always out having a good time, only attending classes just before exams, but Akie never missed a class, always front row and center, busy taking notes. The first time I talked to her was just before a test when I asked to borrow her notebooks. She hardly knew who I was, but she was happy to lend them to me. And the meticulous notes she took were amazing. It made me think that the next year they should give up using those thick old textbooks and use her notebooks for class instead. I thought of buying her some cakes in the school cafeteria to thank her, but thought that wasn't enough, so I gave her one of the 2 concert tickets I had happened to receive. One of my boyfriends had given me the tickets, but I hadn't promised to go with him, so I thought that it was okay to go give one to Akie. Would a girl like her, who seemed super serious, really enjoy a boy band concert? I wondered, but it turned out surprisingly she was a big fan of pop idol singers. No way! I love that group, she told me. Are you sure it's okay? I feel bad. All I did was lend you my notebook. She was so happy that she treated me to a cup of tea. It seemed as though this was the first time she had cakes in the cafeteria, and she was deeply touched. I had never had such delicious cake, she told me. Aki started to interest me. On the day of the concert, she was a bit more dressed up than usual, threw her shoes and handbag with the old worn-out ones that she always had. I wasn't at all that interested in pop idol singers, so instead of watching them singing and dancing about on the stage, my eyes were more drawn to Akia's feet as she leaped up and down for all she was worth. How could she wear such a worn-out shoes and not care at all? How could she? If those were the only shoes I had, I would never leave home. What kind of shoes would I go What kind of shoes would go well with that outfit? I mused. Maybe those green short boots I saw the other day. That's it, I decided. I'll take her out shopping. She only hung out with other girls from the country, so I was sure that she had no idea where any fashionable shops were. Also, I wanted to buy her some really good cakes. Since she enjoyed the second-rate cake in the school cafeteria so much, I knew a nice bakery and I was sure that she would love some. She happily accepted my invitation. At the shoe store, I asked her, "How about these shoes?" And she replied, eyes sparkling, "They're wonderful!" She told me that she wanted to send some nice stationery for her younger sister's birthday, so took her to a store I knew. "You have such good taste, Asako. Why don't you choose?" she said. When we had cakes, she couldn't have been more excited. "I've never ever tasted anything like this." I introduced her to some of the boys I hung out with too. They took her on drives and out drinking. Akia couldn't drink much and was a bit hesitant at first, but the boys were all good-looking and good conversationalists, and gradually she opened up. "Your friends are all so nice, Asako," she told me. And I said, "And you are one of my precious friends too." She beamed. I was enjoying myself immensely. Up to this time, I thought it was only natural that people did things for me, and I had never once thought about making others happy. Every time a boyfriend gave me a present, I always wondered why they wanted to do that, since I never did much of anything for them in return. But now, I understood that I simply enjoy giving. It was so satisfying to see Akia's happy look and hear her thank me. I guess, maybe after all, I'm the type, I thought, who prefers doing things for others over having them do things for me. If I had met the four of you, now 25, under different circumstances, for instance, if Emily had lived and introduced you as her friends, I probably would have enjoyed giving you advice and buying you presents. "Sae, you have such fair skin and distinctive features. If you cut your hair shorter, you wouldn't look so timid. How about letting your ears show and wearing some largish earrings?" And I found some wonderful ones the other day and went ahead and bought them, so I give them to you. So why don't you wear them on your next date? "Maki, you are tall, but you shouldn't wear flats, and you are a teacher. But that doesn't mean that you need to dress properly. I've got it. How about a scarf? You have such a long neck, so it should look good on you. Akiko, you should go out more. You like cute things, right? I know so many great shops I would love to take you to. I don't even know where to start. I wonder if we could see them all in one day. Oh, and a friend of mine opened a flower arranging school. We should go there together. Yuka, you have such beautiful hands. It's a shame to let them go. Have you ever been to a nail salon? I would love to give you a ring as a present, but I suspect you wouldn't be happy to get it from me." And while I'm saying all this, Emily would interrupt. "Stop it, Mama. You always act like this when my friends are over. You're such a busybody, and we have had enough teas and cakes, so leave us alone for a while." and she would shoo me out of the room. Come to think of it, you did all come over to my place once, other than when the murder occurred, just that one time. But I remember it well. None of you could even use a cake fork well, and I was wondering whether it was okay that Emily had friends like this. That evening, though, I got a phone call from Maki's mother who said, "Oh, thank you so much for inviting Maki over. She was so happy to have that delicious cake." When I ran across the other three mothers in the supermarket, they also thanked me and told me how happy their girls had been to visit. So I rethought my first impression. Maybe these girls were better brought up than I had imagined. But truthfully, you didn't enjoy yourselves, I know. The same was true for Akie. Akie would always go with me whenever I invited her and did what she could to dress her best, but her shoes were still worn out. "Wouldn't you like to buy the boots I thought you should get?" I asked her, and she said, "They are wonderful, but kind of expensive. When I get paid from my part-time job, I'll buy some like them, ones that I can afford." I had not known till then that she worked part-time at a restaurant. My parents back home are paying my tuition, which isn't cheap," she said, "so the least I can do is earn my own spending money." I had never once thought about tuition myself. Truthfully, I had no idea how much college cost, but my friends had always been that way. None of the girls I knew had part-time jobs. The only ones who did were poor girls we felt sorry for. I felt sorry for Akie because she had to work, so I bought the boots for her. It wasn't birthday or Christmas, but I felt like friends should simply want to make each other happy like that, regardless of whether it was for a special event. I attached a ribbon and a card that said, "A sign of our friendship," and sent it to her apartment. I couldn't wait to go to school. Would she have them on? I wondered. What outfit would she wear them with? And what would she say to me? But she wasn't wearing them. Maybe they had not arrived yet? I wondered. Or maybe she was saving them for a special occasion. As I was pondering this, she handed the boots back to me, still in the box. "I can't accept this kind of expensive shoes for no reason," she said. I couldn't believe it. I had been positive that she would be overjoyed. "There's no need to hesitate," I told her. And she said that she wasn't hesitating. I gradually got more upset with her. "Why can't you understand my feelings?" I asked. "It doesn't make sense for you to just refuse the boots," I told her. "I mean, I paid for the meals. I paid for meals for you. I introduced you to my friends. If you are going to turn down the boots, then I want you to invite me out to eat, introduce me to your friends. The food has to be something good, and by friends, I mean boys. I introduced you to 5 boys, so you should do the same for me." Welcome, 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 Astora, and welcome, Zephyrus. Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Please take a seat. Oh my god. This is like a dream come true. I'm being surrounded by Horcrux. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Please tune in to my Twitch channel to listen to the story. I'm currently on chapter 5 called Penance. We are going to end the book today. I introduced you to 5 boys, so you should do the same for me. I wasn't really expecting she would take me out to dinner or introduce me to some new boys, but insisting that she would do things I knew she couldn't. I was hoping to put her on the spot. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you for stopping by. By insisting that she do things that I knew she couldn't, I was hoping to put her on the spot, hoping that would force her to back down and accept the gift. But the next week, she actually did invite me out to dinner. At a table in the back of an unappealing little izakaya restaurant, 5 boys were seated waiting for me, and one of them was him. He was a college student, 2 years older than Akie. He worked part-time in the kitchen at the same restaurant, and the other 4 boys were classmates of his in the education department. Akie told me that she was having dinner with an amazing girl, so I hope that you don't mind and I invited this lot over to join us. He said this facetiously. He said this facetiously, but all of them struck me as earnest, formal types. The food was surprisingly good, and as we ate, we began by asking each other where we were all from, those kind of topics. But before 30 minutes were up, I had grown bored. I couldn't follow their conversation. These education majors were pretty intense when it comes to education in Japan. This was back in the days before anyone imagined the notion of pressure-free education. As they were talking, they mentioned a friend who had failed the entrance exam, had a nervous breakdown, and almost tried to kill himself. And they discussed the need for a place where dropouts could get back on their feet. Akie didn't venture an opinion, but closely followed their conversation. The only one bored by it all was me. I mean, no one I ever knew had trouble with entrance exams or anything. They had the perfunctory test and interview before they entered elementary school, but after that, it was all smooth sailing through the system all the way into college, the so-called escalator system. None of my friends were especially remarkable students, but there weren't any dropouts either. The more heated the discussion got, the more it upsets me. My boyfriends always talked about interesting topics so I wouldn't get bored, and I couldn't believe how inconsiderate these boys were. They said they were all from the countryside, and it made me wonder whether rural people were incapable of sophisticated conversation. And as I sat there, bored, he was the only one who spoke to me. All any of us know are rural public schools. But what kind of curriculum do they have at private girls' schools? Any unusual kinds of courses? Or amusing teachers? Anything like that? No. Those were the questions that I could answer. I told him about a science teacher I had in middle school who was crazy about taking walks, who on sunny days liked to hold a class outside. He taught us about different plants and flowers in the 4 seasons, the names of various insects, why leaves turn red, when you can expect to see the rainbows, how the walls of the school building seems white but really they weren't. What surprised me was that it wasn't just this boy who asked me to listen intently to my story, but every one of his friends. Kids from the countryside shouldn't find anything in nature so unusual. So, what did they find so interesting? It was my turn to be surprised. As I expected, they all went to reminisce about time back when they were children. All the things that the rural kids did. Kick the can, red light, green light, catching dragonflies and crayfish in the rice fields, building secret forts in the field. All kinds of games that I knew nothing about, though Emily played those games with the 4 of you. I wanted to do the very best job I could of raising Emily. I felt it was my duty. So even after she could speak properly, I took her to a supplementary after-school lesson and English conversation practice, plus piano and ballet. You might think that I'm some silly, pushy parent, but Emily was very bright and sharp and learned things very quickly. She easily passed to get into a highly selective elementary school. What would she become in the future, I wondered. I was sure that Emily would be able to make anything come true, even things you could only dream about. And then came the transfer to that rural town. My parents urged me to stay with Emily back in Tokyo. My husband wasn't opposed to the idea, but I decided that we should go with him. This was this was a critical point in my husband's career. Building this new factory meant a change in his position in the company, and I wanted to do what I could to support him. But even more important than that were Emily's feelings. Since she said that she wanted to go with her father, Emily really loved her papa. My husband's assignment at the new factory was from 3 to 5 years, and I figured we could enjoy the time living in this country town with its pure air. So I didn't move there grudgingly, though things ended up as I wrote to you earlier. After the move, I regretted it every single day. But when I saw how Emily adapted, and I began to think that maybe it wasn't a bad decision. My expectations of what I would find in that town were way too optimistic. Even if there weren't any special or unusual programs for children, I was sure that at least there would be the same type of cram schools and other after school programs that Emily had been attending in Tokyo. But all they had was a piano school, and the level of instructions there was so low. The teacher had graduated from some no-name music college and had no experience performing in competitions. I might as well have taught Emily my piano myself. The local cram school allowed students starting in 5th and 6th grade and had classes in English and math, and was run by one teacher who, again, only had graduated from a second-rate school. Any child raised in this kind of environment would have to be innately bright to be able to go on to a decent college. But more than that, I thought it would take an inordinate amount of effort. It might lead to a nervous breakdown, or if one failed to get in, even to suicide. Some of the other mothers in our company housing early on sensed an impending crisis if they didn't take action and started taking their children to cram school in a larger city, a 2-hour trip each way. They grumbled at the transportation expenses cost more than the tuition. I felt as if I finally could understand what I have heard over 10 years before in that little izakaya about the pressure on children. So I decided not to push Emily too hard. We had come out all this way to the country to live, so she should take advantage of it and do things she couldn't do back in the city. And Emily seemed to really enjoy life there. She had come home from school, drop off her backpack, then go right out to play until it got dark. After she came home, all she could talk about was the fun you all had together. How she had seen some crayfish, played kick the can in school grounds, and gone off into the hills, though what she did there was always a secret. Thank you so much for dropping by. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a nice day. Played kick the can in the school grounds and gone off into the hills, though what she did there was always a secret. She talked about all of you girls too. Sae, she said, was quiet but reliable. Maki, the hardest worker of all of you. Akiko was really good at sports, and Yuka was skilled at handicraft. Pretty amazing, isn't it? How closely Emily observed you all, quickly assimilating into life in the country. Watching her new friends closely, she was the exact opposite of me. I'd always thought of her as my child alone, but now I began to see how his blood too ran through her. The day after we went out to the izakaya, Akie told me that she would accept the boots. I'm sorry, she said. I was just being stubborn. I will let you wear this if it's okay, as a sign of our friendship. Ah, I thought, so she really did want them after all. Occasionally, we went out together after that, but I no longer had the same desire to make her happy. And strangely enough, I no longer liked it when my boyfriends were nice to her. Akie was really popular among them, perhaps because she was the type of girl they had never known. One boy I was sure was head over heels just for me, turned out had asked Akie out behind my back. But conversely, the boys Akie introduced me to started to be very nice to me. At first, it seemed they had mistakenly pegged as an unapproachable rich girl, but once we started talking, they had found me sociable and fun and said that they would like the same group to get together again. And we did, about once a week. One time we all went to one boy's hometown to swim at the seaside, and while we were there too, they were very solicitous of me, making sure that I wasn't bored or thirsty or anything. Gradually, I found it more fun being with them than my own boyfriends. It wasn't just because of how they treated me, it was more the vitality they had, how heatedly they debated education theory at every opportunity. That, at, that attracted me to them. And the one I was most attracted to was the boy who had first spoken to me back at the izakaya. At first, he was the most considerate one towards me, but all of them began to treat me kindly. He started to keep his distance. I realized that he was the one I most agreed with when they all debated, and was always watching him and him alone. This education department, the students, discussed education so intensely. I was sure all of them wanted to become teachers, but he was the only one planning to. The others all wanted to become civil servants and change education policy that way. But if you don't have experience in the classroom, he always countered, how can you ever bring about revolution in the education? The way he stood up to them made him even more manly and attractive in my eyes. I liked him a lot, but had no idea what to do about it. I was the type who always spoke my mind, but I've never considered my feelings for a man before. It had always been the man who told me his feelings, and up till then, I've never liked someone as much as I liked him. If I had been certain that he liked me, I might have been able to confess my feelings, but I wasn't sure if he did, so I enlisted Akie to help me out. They worked at the same restaurant, so I asked her, when the two of them were alone, to sound him out about his feelings towards me. To my great surprise, in a roundabout way, she turned me down. I'm just not sure about that, she told me. That upset me a little, but then I realized that if our position were reversed and the answer came back negative, I would regret having accepted the request. If things were reversed, a thought struck me. First, I would get Akie and one of my boyfriends to fall for each other, then have her, as a way of thanking me, sound out the boy I was interested in his feelings. I knew how conscientious she was and couldn't imagine her so absorbed in her own happiness that she would turn me down if I asked her for help. I asked one of the boys I knew to come and see me, one I knew was interested in Akie. I didn't beat around the bush. You like Akie, right? No need to hesitate around me. Go for it. I'm sure Akie thinks you're nice. For one thing, you look like the singer that she likes. The only reason she turned you down when you invited her out was that she was shy. She has a tendency to get more obstinate the happier she becomes. So just go for it. You know, she can't hold her liquor. Tell her there's something about me that you want to talk with her about, and then go out drinking, just the two of you. Once you get her drunk, the rest should be easy. My strategy paid off, and the man I had my eyes on and I became a couple, or at least it seemed that way. It turned out that I was the only one who was under his impression, or who was under that impression. It's always like that with me. I was happy that you all become friends with Emily, and I was hoping that through you and I will have better relationship with all of your mothers and with others in town. But you never ever accepted Emily. And when she was murdered, the reality of that became painfully clear. The day we arrived in town, I heard Greensleeves playing in the distance. I wondered what it was for. Was there a special time event going on? The sad melody seemed to perfectly express how I was feeling. The woman from the factory office who was showing us around town explained that it was the time signal. At noon, Edelweiss, and at 6 p.m., Greensleeves played from the community center speakers. When there are warnings issued, she went on, or when there's some emergency, they will broadcast the same way, so please listen to them carefully. Just that one little speaker is how they contacted everyone in town. That's how small the town is, I thought, and felt absolutely miserable. Still, the musical signal was inconvenient. I imagined that the children, even if they had a watch on, might not look at it when they were having fun playing, but they would hear the music. I used to tell Emily every time when she went out to play, when the music plays, come back home. That day too, as I was getting dinner ready, I heard Greensleeves. The factory was partly open even during Obon, and my husband was at work, so I was alone at home. Just then, the door intercom rang. It must be Emily, I thought, and I opened the door. But there stood Akiko. Emily's dead! I thought it was some mean trick. From about 2 months before this, Emily had occasionally asked me things like, what would you do if I died? Or, if something painful happens, is it okay to die and then be reborn? So my first thought was that she and her friends were trying to trick me, and that Emily was hiding behind the door waiting to see how I would react. Don't even talk about dying, even as a joke. I had told her several times. I was kind of upset. But Emily wasn't hiding. Was she in an accident? I thought. Where? At the school swimming pool? She knows how to swim, so how could that happen? Why Emily? My mind went blank, and right then, what came to me was Akie's face. I raced out of my house. Don't take Emily away! When I got to the pool, I heard a child crying or yelling. I wasn't sure which, but it was Sae. She was crouched outside the changing rooms, head in her hands. Where's Emily? I asked, and she pointed behind her without looking up. The changing room? Hadn't she fallen into the pool? I looked inside the dimly lit room and found Emily laying there, face up, on the drain boards, her head towards the door. She wasn't wet and didn't look hurt. Over her face was a handkerchief with a cute cat character on it. So it's a trick after all. My legs felt about to give out. Drained of the energy to get angry, I tugged off the handkerchief and found Emily's eyes open. Just how long are you going to keep this up? I asked, poking the tip of her nose. I felt cold. I held my palm out in front of her nose and mouth but felt no breath. I lifted her up and yelled her name again and in her ear, but she didn't blink once. I shook her shoulders and screamed at her, but Emily never woke up. I was in a state of disbelief. Even after the funeral, I didn't want to accept that she was gone. This wasn't happening to us. I wish it were me who was dead. A long time passed. I had no idea if it was day or night. And I asked my husband again and again, where is Emily? I don't know how many times he answered in a quiet voice, Emily is no longer with us. I had never seen my husband cry before, but now, when I saw the tears falling from his eyes, it finally hit me that Emily was truly gone. Why? I repeated this question over and over. Why did Emily have to die? Why did she have to be strangled? Why did she have to be murdered? I wanted to hear this directly from the murderer himself. The murderer had to be caught, and there wasn't any minute to spare. I was sure they would catch him so soon. There were, after all, at least 4 eyewitnesses. But you all said the same thing. We don't remember his face. I felt like slapping each one of you hard, one after the other. If you truly couldn't remember, there wasn't much we could do about it. But you didn't even seem to be trying hard to recall. And it wasn't just his face. You watched silently as Emily was led away by a strange man and then didn't go check on her for over an hour. And not one of you seemed to regret that as you made your statements. Your friend died. Yet no one, not one of you cried. Was it because you weren't sad? As I looked at you, I thought, these girls realize something terrible happened, but they don't feel sorry for Emily. If it had been one of the other girls, not Emily, who had been taken away, they might not have let her go off by herself. Or else, might have gotten worried and gone off earlier to check on her. You would have been sadder, would have done your utmost for that girl's sake to remember the murderer's face. It wasn't just those girls, but their parents too. My husband and I visited each family to ask them more about what had happened that day, but one of the parents, I can't recall which, muttered, "Who do you think you are? The police?" And the other parents yelled at us. My child had been through enough already. Don't hurt her anymore. Hello, Ando. If we had been a couple they knew from a long time ago and asked the same things, would they have reacted this way? I seriously doubt it. Actually, everyone in town was the same. Onlookers from all over town gathered at school that day, yet hardly any useful information came to light. Housewives I've never seen before knew all about my asking for camembert cheese at the supermarket, so how could there be no speck of information or any leads about the murderer? If it had been a local girl who had been murdered, there would have been a flood of leads about various unsavory types. On top of that, were the public address announcement blaring over the speaker. For a while after the murder, at times when children were going to and from school, they would have announcements like, "Good children never do things alone, but always do things with someone from their family or a friend. If a stranger talks to you, do not go with him." But why didn't they also announce something like, "If anyone has information that could help in the crime that took place recently, no matter how small, please contact the police"? No one mourns Emily's death. No one understands the pain I have felt at having my child killed. There were so few leads about the man who murdered her for a time. I even suspected that the 4 of you had killed her. You all killed her, and all agreed on a story you made up about a criminal who did not exist. You didn't want to be caught up in a lie, so you said you couldn't remember what he looked like. And everyone in town knew this and was protecting you. I was the only one who didn't know what's going on. Me, the one left all alone. You appeared to me in my dreams, and every night a different one of you strangled Emily, murdered her, while you let out a hideous laugh, and turning your malicious face to me, you said over and over in chorus, "I don't remember his face." Before I realized what I was doing, I had run out of the house barefoot, clutching a knife. My husband chased after me. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked. And I said, "I'm getting revenge for Emily." "But they haven't found the murderer yet," he said. "Those children, they're the ones who killed her." I screamed back, "It can't be them. I mean, look." My husband countered, but faltered, not wanting to say aloud that Emily had been sexually assaulted. I didn't care. It was them, those girls, who did it. I screamed and screamed, but don't remember anything after that. I might have fainted. might have been held down by other residents at the company apartment, might have been given a sedative. It was all a blur. Afterward, I couldn't get by without sedatives, and my husband said that it would be best if I went back to my parents' place and rested for a while, but I refused. If we had not come to this town, Emily wouldn't have been murdered. It was this town that had killed her. I loathed the town, but didn't leave because if I did, everyone would forget all about the murder, and the murderer would never be caught. And I hadn't lost all hope in you girls. As I gradually recovered, I remembered you were just 10-year-old girls after all, pushing children that young. Driving them to remember wouldn't help. Those girls themselves, I thought, had not fully recovered. Once they were back to normal, they might remember something, and might finally mourn Emily. Maybe one of them would even show up for a memorial service for her to light incense and pray. Still, 3 years passed and you all just keep repeating the same thing. I was sure none of you four had killed her. That's why I said what I did. I will never forgive you unless you find the murderer before the statute of limitations is up. If you can't do that, then atone for what you have done in a way that I will accept. If you don't do either one, I'm telling you here and now, I will have my revenge on each and every one of you. Maybe I'm the worst adult imaginable for saying something like this to young girls barely in junior high. But unless I said something shocking like that, I thought you would forget all about Emily. And you four were the only eyewitnesses. And I was sure that even though I said that to you the day after I left town, you would forget all about the murder. That's why, though I have not forgotten Emily for a second, I decided to wipe that town totally out of my mind. In Tokyo, I had family and friends who consoled me, and there were lots of places I could go to take my mind off my sorrow. But one who comforted me the most might have been Takahiro. Other than Sae, you probably don't know who I'm talking about. When he lived in that town, he was the only child who was concerned about me. My husband's cousin and his wife came to town at the same time we did to work at the Adachi manufacturing plant. They might be relatives, but the wife also worked, and the couple didn't seem to get along well, so we didn't see them much. As for Takahiro, I heard that he was a bright little boy, but there was a cold look in his eyes, and he was the kind of child who, even if you happened to run across in the hallway of the apartment building, you wouldn't say hello. Yet, after the incident, he came by himself to my place. I'm truly sorry that I couldn't do anything to help after that awful thing happened. I was back in Tokyo when it all took place, he said. I'm thinking I'll ask the kids at school to see if they know anything that might be a lead. So I was wondering if you could tell me about the day it happened, just what you feel comfortable talking about. Before this though, he went over to the tablet set up to memorialize Emily, lit a stick of incense and said a silent prayer for her. He was the only one ever to do that, and it made me very happy. He asked about the connection with the French doll robbery incident, and we had nothing to do with the French dolls. The townspeople had seemed to jump the gun in linking the crimes, but no evidence had surfaced proving they were committed by the same person. That's what I told him. After this, he stopped by our house occasionally. He never had any important information to share, but I was happy that he showed concern about the murder and about how I was doing. Both our families returned to Tokyo at the same time, and back home, he continued to stop by every once in a while. Your house is on the way back from school. I thought I would drop by. I know you always treat me something good to eat. I'm sorry. He sounded quite apologetic, but I enjoyed having Takahiro over. All he did was tell me about things happening at his school. but somehow it cheered me up. Before Emily had even entered elementary school, I had a discussion once with one of the other mothers I had gotten to know at the private cram school Emily attended. We were talking about which we found more adorable, boys or girls. Naturally, I said girls. You can dress them up in cute clothes and talk with them like your friends and go out shopping together. Even the other mother said, I used to think so too, but now I'm not so sure. She had two children, an older girl and a boy Emily's age. This is what she told me. Before I had children, I thought I wanted a girl. I figured even after she grew up, we could be friends. So when I had a girl, I was overjoyed. But it was after I had a boy that I understood. A girl, after all, is a friend. That's fun. But girls compete with each other. When I see her whispering some secret to my husband, it upsets me. A boy, though, is more like a lover than a friend. Even though it's your own child, it's still the opposite sex. So you don't compete with each other. You want to do whatever you can for him unconditionally, and all it takes to cheer you up is having him say a few kind words to you. I'm looking forward to hearing from my daughter about boyfriends someday, but I imagine I'll have mixed feelings when my son grows up and tells me about his girlfriend. This is weird. Side comment, this is weird. Hearing this, I imagine if Emily had been a boy. When she was born, I thought she looked just like me, but as she grew older, I was startled sometimes at how much she resembled her father. If she had been a boy, I probably would have given her a hug because of that, and I might have felt even more strongly that I had to take very, very good care of her. But none of that matters now. Boy or girl, as long as they lived, that would be enough for me. I've gotten off topic, but I started to feel as if Takahiro was my own son. I asked him if he had girlfriend and he laughed and said a couple but nothing serious, deflecting the question, but it was enough to give me mixed feelings. Sometimes he visited friends in town and through that caught an occasional kernel of news about you four. You were all living ordinary lives, he said. Nothing special to report. Just as I had suspected, I thought at first, and this made me angry. But gradually, I came to accept that this was okay. This one I should be angry at is the murderer. The one I should be angry at is the murderer. Those girls have their own lives to live, I thought. If Emily had been in your situation, I'm sure I would have told her to forget all about the murder. How many years did it take for me to finally arrive to this realization, I wonder? I truly came to believe that it was good that you could live normal lives again. Takahiro stopped going back to that town, and I heard no more news about you and stopped thinking about you. That's how you forget about things, I thought. It was the beginning of a spring this year when Takahiro came to our house and said that there was a girl he wanted to seriously go out with and asked us to act as go-betweens, set up the Omiyai meeting her. It made me a little sad to think of him getting married, but I was overjoyed that he would ask me and my husband to take on such an important task. My husband liked Takahiro, and when he heard the girl worked in a company that was a client of his company, he eagerly accepted, saying he would get in touch with her superiors in her workplace. But when I heard the girl's name, I was shocked. One of the four girls? I couldn't believe my ears. At first, Takahiro apologized for it, explained that when he visited the town, she started to get interested in Sae. That at the end of the year, he had happened to see her again in Tokyo with her work colleagues and felt as if it was fate that he ran into her again. Before he left, he apologized again. I'm very sorry if I stirred up painful memories for you, Auntie, and for Uncle, he said. Painful?
I didn't feel that way. So Takahiro is at that age now, is he? I thought. I was surprised to think that the girls the same age as Emily were now old enough to get married. I couldn't believe that much time had passed. If only Emily had lived. She's the one I should have brought together with the person she loved. I should I should have protected her until that day. There's no need to apologize, I told Takahiro. When you love a person, you don't need someone else's permission to be with them. The two of them had their omiyai, began seeing each other regularly, and then decided to marry. Since the girl was one of you four, I was half resigned to not being invited to the wedding. But my husband and I were the first Takahiro invited. Sae really hopes that you will attend, he told me. Sae had grown so pretty it was hard to believe she was once a child from that rustic little town, dressed in a white wedding dress gown, surrounded by friends from work wishing her well. She had a radiant smile. But the instant she saw me, her smile vanished and she looked at me fearfully. A natural response, I guess, when suddenly confronted on the happiest day of your life with someone who reminded you of the past tragedy. Forget about what happened, I told her, and be happy. Thank you, she said, tears running down her cheeks. I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders too, though I couldn't say this to all of you. These words I should have said a long time ago. I was so glad I was able to say it to her then. And yet, Sae went on to murder Takahiro. A terrible series of crimes had begun. When my husband first told me about the murder, I knew there had to be some mistake. Less than a month after being so happy at her wedding ceremony, the bride, Sae, killed Takahiro? Wasn't it an accident? A burglar broke in perhaps, and Takahiro was killed trying to protect Sae? And she said I'm the one who killed him. It happened in a far-off country, so I wasn't able to see Takahiro's body, just to hear indirectly that Sae had confessed to the police to murdering her husband. I couldn't accept that he was dead. Takahiro, who was like a son to me. Takahiro, the only one who ever consoled me after Emily was murdered. If I could have seen the body with my own eyes, I might have been able to truly despise Sae for snatching away my beloved son. But before that could happen, I received a letter. As I read the long letter, I realized I had been wrong all this time. I couldn't believe that Emily's murder would weigh so heavily on her. For a while afterwards, she couldn't help but feel fear, compounded by the fact that the murderer was still on the loose. But normally, as time passed, you should be able to forget that. Yet Sae couldn't, and the murder held her prisoner to fear so great it affected her health. I'm sure she felt a gaze on her at times. It was hard to believe that Takahiro had gone to that town in order to keep watch over Sae, and that he was the one who stole the French dolls. I didn't want to believe it, but I don't think Sae was lying in her letter. Still, I don't want you to label Takahiro as a pervert so quickly. I understand his feelings very well. Like me, he was very lonely in that town. You have to realize that because of problems in his family, he no longer knew how to form relationships with people, and that would include the other children in town. So he fell in love with dolls and had his eye constantly on a girl who resembled them. Don't condemn him for this. No matter the motivation for wanting her to be his, I know he wanted to treasure Sae for the rest of his life. And Sae too tried to understand and accept the way he was, which is why she decided that it was alright for her body to become fully a woman's. But at the very moment a tragedy occurred. Was it all my fault? Sae took the words I told you all that day as a firm promise. That's why she couldn't forget the murder, why her mind and body both were held in thrall to it. And as she tried to forget the promise and everything that went with it, suddenly there I was at her wedding, the happiest day of her life, to remind her of it all over again. I told her to forget the murder, but for her, that may have been, conversely, a trigger that made her realize that the murder was fading from her memory. Am I to blame for Takahiro's death? Was I the one who bound her to Emily's death? That's what I wanted to know. No, that's not it, really. What I wanted for was for her to deny it, to tell me, no, it's not because of you. That's what I wanted to hear. If not, the other three girls had moved on from the murder and were living normal lives now. I could put Sai down as a special case, the one exception. Apart from this, I felt I had to tell all of you, since I suspected, at least from what she said in the murder, that you didn't know how Sai felt after the murder. So I made copies of her letter without her permission and sent them all to you. Was that wrong? I don't know. But I thought that you three, of all people, who had been all the same part of the same murder, would forgive me. No, it's that I simply couldn't bear the guilt alone for what happened to her. That's the real reason I sent you all the letter I received from Sai. Why not a pen, a message from me too? It's because I had no idea what to say. The three of you are okay, I assume? I couldn't write something like that. Don't do anything stupid. Even less I could have written something like that. But I should have. Because I didn't write anything and just forwarded the letter without comment, Maki too was driven into a corner by me. I first heard about the incident with Maki on the TV news. I couldn't imagine that she had been a part of it. I mean, it took place in a far-off seaside town, and even though it involved, shockingly, a man breaking into an elementary school, only one child was hurt badly, so it wasn't covered at all extensively. But the fact that it took place at an elementary school swimming pool spurred me on to learn more. It might not have been big on news TV, but it was all over the internet and weekly news magazine. One teacher stood up to the intruder while the second one ran away. The former was a female teacher and the latter was an athletic male teacher. Perfect fodder for a splashy story for the internet to play up. Both teachers' real names and photos were made public. When I saw that one of them was Maki, I was shocked, but it also made me happy. I thought, she's living an ordinary life. In fact, had worked so hard to carve out her own life. Becoming a teacher and protecting young children was something she could have done if she was not something she could have done if she was still seized with the fear over the murder. I concluded that Sae was indeed the exception, a basically weak-willed person, and that it wasn't all my fault. But that feeling of relief was short-lived. As I searched for more news on the incident one day, I ran across a weird item. Maki was a murderer, it said. On the TV news, it said that the intruder died because he stabbed his own leg and fell into the pool. But in this internet report, it said that when the intruder tried to climb out of the pool, Maki kicked him repeatedly and thus killed him. I know you can't believe everything you read online, but I couldn't totally ignore it, and I decided to phone Maki's elementary school. They must have had plenty of prank calls, but the first thing they did ask was my name and affiliation, which threw me a little bit. But I determined to learn the facts, so I went ahead and gave them my name, and since I had no title, I gave my husband's company and position and said that I was the mother of one of Maki's friends. They told me that Maki was on campus and they had passed along my message. I was the one who had called, yet the whole thing had me flustered for a moment. There was so much I wanted to ask, and where to start. I was pondering this. As I was pondering this, Maki came on the line. We are holding an unscheduled PTA meeting the day after tomorrow, she said. I have something that I would like you to hear, so I hope you will attend. She hung up right after this, but I was relieved to hear how calm she sounded. A person who had kicked an intruder to death wouldn't be that calm, and the fact that she answered the phone must have meant that she had not been arrested. Those online reports must be nonsense, I decided. I took the Shinkansen train all the way to her town to attend because I wanted to ask her about Sae. I knew Maki was going through a lot, but I felt that someone like her, who had lived a decent, upright life, would listen. But what Maki said at the meeting threw me even deeper into a pit of shame and guilt. I was startled from the beginning. She said that right after the murder, she did remember the murderer's face. If that's true, why didn't you say anything? You had gone home before any of the other children, but none of the adults would have blamed you for that. Instead, I wish you had told what the murderer looked like. If you had, I'm sure I would never have been able to thank you enough, and I might not have subjected you or the other girls as well to those words I said 3 years after Emily was killed. But as I listened to Maki now, I couldn't blame her. I knew that she too was held captive by Emily's murder and by my words in a way that went beyond fear. If I hadn't said what I said and hadn't forwarded Sae's letter, Maki would still have protected her children. But she might not have delivered the final blow to finish off the intruder. As I sat there in the last row in the gym, I was stricken by the series of crimes that had occurred, and I wanted to dash out of there, but I couldn't even stand up, for I had just heard an unbelievable name. As Maki kicked the intruder, she remembered a person resembling the murderer from 15 years ago. I found it incredible that his name would come up, and she added, somewhat ambiguously, there's someone who resembles him even more. I think this is what she wanted to say. The murderer looked a lot like Emily. I can only hope that this was some misunderstanding on her part. Maybe she kicked that intruder. She remembered Emily's face, and that gave her the illusion that she remembered the murderers. And then the face of a famous man who resembled Emily came to her. That makes sense. She might have forced herself to have that impression. But there was something I had to do before thinking about that murderer. I had to put a stop to this series of crimes. I decided to summarize what Maki had said at the meeting, and this time add my own message to it. The same night, all of what Maki had said was on the website of a sleazy weekly magazine. My name was given as Miss A mystery advisor, as they put it. I had an acquaintance delete that, but before I made 2 copies of the article, I put them in envelopes. I've forgiven all of you. That's the message I appended to it. So, don't do anything dreadful. Killing a different man in place of the murderer is not a form of penance. I could only hope the rest of the girls would hear my prayer. And yet, next, Akiko killed someone, and that too was in the same town. And almost unimaginably, the victim was her own brother. This wasn't the time to write letters anymore. I set off for that town. Akiko killed her brother in order to protect a little girl. What I should apologize to Akiko was not for those words I told her 3 years after Emily's murder, but what happened immediately afterward. The instant I heard that Emily had been killed, I may well have shoved Akiko aside. Everything went blank before me at the moment, and I honestly can't recall. But I want you to know this. I didn't push Akiko down because I hated her. And of course, I never thought Akiko deserved to be treated that way. It was me, I think, who drove her to do what she did. She never read either of the 2 letters. She thought the letters were reminders of the promise that she made. Maybe that's why her little niece and Emily overlapped in her mind. Then, what should I have done? Fortunately, when I got in touch with Yuka's family from the hospital where Akiko was hospitalized, I learned that Yuka's apartment was only 3 stops away by train, so I decided to see her directly. Yuka's mother hadn't heard my voice in over 10 years, and at first didn't realize that it was me, but once I told her my name, she seemed to make the connection. I understand exactly how much you want them to arrest the murderer before the statute of limitations runs out, Yuka's mother said. But Yuka is having a baby very soon. It's a critical time for her. I would prefer that you leave her alone. She was pretty upset. But with what happened to Sae and Maki and Akiko, both wary of men ever since the murder, it really surprised me to know and that Yuka was pregnant. Then Yuka's okay, I decided. I knew very well how women got stronger when they get pregnant. If you have another life growing inside you, you can put up with the most painful things that you're on your own that you couldn't. The child inside your womb is more important than yourself, and as long as that maternal instinct arose, I was sure that she wouldn't be taking any rash actions. Still, I couldn't just go back to Tokyo. I had a photograph I had to have her look at. It's just one photo that I would like her to take a look at, I told Yuka's mother, and somehow persuaded her to give me the address of Yuka's apartment and her cell phone number. I brought the photo with me. I was hoping that Maki was mistaken, but the name she gave was a name connected to something I deeply regretted in my past, and I just had to know. Naturally, I planned to show it to Akiko too, but there was possibility that though she said that she didn't remember the man's face. In fact, she did. But she told me that not only didn't she remember his face, she couldn't recall any other details about him. So showing her the photo to her would be pointless, which actually made me feel a little more relieved. Even so, she mentioned the same name. She said that on the day of the murder, her cousin and his girlfriend were visiting town, saw a man resembled him at the station. The cousin said that the man was his girlfriend's teacher back in elementary school. I was afraid to be alone. The reason I went to see Yuka wasn't so she would tell me that he wasn't the murderer, but more to have someone hear about the sin I had committed on my own past. But it wasn't the time or place, so I didn't talk about it. That's why I'm writing about it here. After I started going out with him, Aki and I grew apart. Not that we quarreled or didn't get along anymore, but as seniors we were in different seminars and I didn't go to school as often as before. He was in his second year of teaching at an elementary school, and I started spending all my time at his place as if I were his wife. While he was at work, I did the cleaning and prepared meals, totally absorbed in the kind of housework I had never done before. I mentioned wanting to get married and living together. After you graduate, I would like to formally go to visit your family, he said, and I was overjoyed. His words alone should have been enough for me, but I was impatient and said I couldn't rely on a verbal promise alone. So he used his meager bonus from work to buy me a ring, an engagement ring with my birthstone, a ruby. I couldn't be happier. And while he was out, I had tried the ring over and over, and then take it off and polish it. And then one day, my hand slipped and the ring fell beneath the desk. And that's when I spotted a notebook I had never seen before protruding from a drawer. It had been pushed to the very back and stuck out all the more. A secret notebook it looked like. Maybe it's just some study notebook, I thought, and I pulled it out and opened it, because I wanted to know everything about him. But I soon regretted opening it. The notebook was his diary, but if it had been an ordinary diary, I would have enjoyed going ahead and reading it, feeling a twinge of guilt perhaps. If he had written about me, that would make me happy to read it. But the diary was full of his longing for another woman, someone he couldn't let go of. Is the promise we made then not forever? Why did your feelings change so suddenly? Why didn't you say anything? I know you betrayed me, but I couldn't help thinking of you every single night. The diary wrote. I knew right away. This you, he wrote, wasn't about me, because I was there with him every day. The dates in the diary overlapped with when he started seeing me, and I felt horribly betrayed. I left his apartment, went back home, shut myself away in my room. I really did feel sick. started to feel sick and took to my bed. I had no appetite and felt feverish, as if I was on a rolling boat and seasick. I had never imagined that finding out that he loved someone else other than me would cause me this much hurt. Am I this weak a woman? I wondered. I had run out after reading halfway, and maybe I should have read the diary until the very end. Then at least I might discover the name of this other woman, find out who she is, and if I felt she was no match for me, it would be okay, wouldn't it? Since he promised to marry me. Maybe Akie knows who this is. I can ask her if back when they worked together at the restaurant, there was any other woman who came to see him. I phoned right away, quite a while before she had told me that things hadn't worked out with one of the boyfriends I had arranged for her to date, so I figured she would understand how I feel and kindly hear me out. Akie was at home in the apartment she lived alone. I've only visited her once and remember it as a dim, spare, lonely little place. She said that she was writing up her resume so she could find a job after school. Asako, you're not going to find going you're not going out to you're not going to go out for job interviews? Oh right, you don't need to. You can use your family's connection to get in wherever you want. I envy you. So why are you calling? I hadn't heard my friend's voice in some time, but it sounded cold, as if she was trying to reject me. Her search for a job probably wasn't going very well and she was on the edge, but still, it angered me that she would use this tone with me when I was feeling so down. That's why I went ahead and said what I did. You're right. I mean, I'm going to get married to him. After I graduate, we are going to officially announce it to my parents, and he gave me an engagement ring too. I told him not to go to the trouble since it's so expensive, but he insisted that I accept it. I haven't told anyone this yet, but I think I'm pregnant. We might not wait until I graduate to get married. I'm so happy, Akie. And it's because of you. Because you are the one who introduced us. I'm not sure myself why I said I was pregnant back then. Just because I've been feeling a little under the weather. I might have been trying to reassure myself. Akie remained silent, so I went on ahead and babbled on and on about things I did to take care of him, movies we had seen together, and so on. And finally, Akie spoke up. If it's okay, why don't you come over right now? I want to hear it all from you directly, not over the phone. And you can show me your engagement ring. It must be gorgeous. I looked at the clock and saw it was 9. Going out this late was a bother. But all this talking about my love perked me up, and I thought it was worth going there, if only to show off my ring. After I get ready, I'll be right over, I told her and hung up. Sorry?
Stretch!
Guys, I don't think the redemption thing is the plugs are working very well. Guys, sound problem right now. So don't waste your redemption day, please. It's not working well. I don't know why. don't read them anything, it's fine. Because I would have to
end stream and I have to close my.
Streamlab, make it work again. So yeah, don't bother. It's fine. It's fine. It was only about 30 minutes to her apartment by taxi, but with the weekend and crowded roads, it took nearly an hour to get there. I knocked at the door at her place, but there was no answer. Thinking maybe she had not heard, I tried the doorknob, and the door wasn't locked, so I went in. Beyond the tiny entrance, there was a one six-mat room, and I saw her immediately. She was collapsed on the bed, which was covered in blood. She had cut her wrist. It didn't occur to me to call the ambulance. I was terrified, and instead used her phone to call him. "Come over right now," I said. He said he had gone out drinking with a friend and exhausted.
"Could we make it tomorrow?" I said, "You need to come right this minute. Come to Akie's apartment. She has killed herself." He hung up almost immediately before I got the words out. "He's coming." I thought vacantly as I sat beside Akie. That's when I noticed an unopened letter on top of her desk. Addressed to me, maybe? I mean, Akie was the one who asked me over. I opened it to find a single sheet of stationery. "Hiroaki, I love you forever." What is this? Akie loved him? Could he have also loved her? Did Akie kill herself to spite me? But has she really planned to die? If I hadn't been caught in a traffic jam and gotten here earlier, maybe she would have failed in her attempt. What should I do? He'll be here soon. I stuck the letter in my bag and ran out of the apartment. A resident of another unit was just coming home, and I had them call an ambulance. But Akie was beyond saving, and he never came. Maybe unable to find a taxi, maybe wanting to get over to Akie's as fast as he could, he had borrowed a car from a colleague in the same apartment building and driven towards Akie's place. But on the way, he had gotten into an accident. It was a minor accident, a fender bender, and though no one was hurt, he had been drinking beforehand, and naive me had no idea of the consequences. If a teacher was arrested for DUI, he would be dismissed in disgrace from his position and lose his job. And all that had suddenly befallen us frightened me, and I ran away from him. As I walked towards Yuka's apartment, he was all I thought about. Did he kill Emily? But why? 10 years later, in that town, I had kept Akie's letter all those years. People around her at the time were sure that Akie had done it because she had turned down all the companies she had been turned down for all the companies she applied for. Unemployment neurosis, they call it. Don't misunderstand me. She was an earnest, outstanding young woman. If she were alive today, I'm sure she would have hired by a large corporation and come up a top career woman. But back then, society didn't accept women like her. Someone like her would, from the back of nowhere with no connections, wouldn't be able to even get a job doing clerical work, let alone with any prospect of promotion. They would have tossed her resume in the reject file with barely a glance, and before she even took the written exam or have an interview. But truly, she was more intelligent than any woman I've ever known. It was no wonder he fell in love with her. One of them should have told me about it. If they had, I wouldn't have done anything to stop them. I had no interest in any man who was in love with some other woman. Somehow, he must have found out what I have done, tearing them apart, driving the woman he loved to suicide, and running away. Now that I think of it, isn't there a town near here with the same name as the one Akie said that she came from? As these thoughts were vacantly whirling around in my head, I walked from the station and arrived at Yuka's apartment. With the fixed stares of hers behind the glass, maybe she did remember what the murderer looked like. I was picturing I was picturing showing her at this late date a photo of him and her saying, "No, I don't think it's him." And was about to start up the stairs when I heard a man and a woman arguing. What an awful timing I have, I thought, and hid in the shadows of the bushes and saw them appear on the stairs above me. It was Yuka and a man. Yuka looked about to be knocked over. I quickly pulled out my cell phone and punched in Yuka's number, which I had in my contact list. The theme song of a detective drama I was familiar with rang out and the man fell down the stairs. It was so dark I couldn't really see how he happened to fall. When I saw how calm she was when she called for the ambulance, I decided not to show myself. If she had fallen apart and collapsed in tears, I probably would have come out to her right away. But I couldn't bring myself to when she was that calm. After that, she climbed aboard the ambulance. I hailed a taxi. After I had been in the taxi for a while and calmed down, this thought hit me. The last girl has finally done it. If only I had not hadn't called her on her phone, and had confronted her and told her to stop it. I felt regret, but I knew all too well that remorse after the fact was pointless. Maybe I had gradually resigned myself to fate, or perhaps I had premonitions sprouting inside me that the series of tragedies that had taken place would, in the end, come my way. That was probably why I could listen to so calmly to the end of Yuka's story. I had no idea about Emily playing in that abandoned cottage, though I do remember the ring going missing. I couldn't bring myself to throw away the ring he gave me, or Aki's suicide note, so I carefully placed it in a box and put it in the back of the closet when I was putting things away after we moved. Emily happened to see that box and opened it up. "That's so pretty," she said, eyes narrowed as she opened the ring case. "Why is it in here?" she asked, to which I immediately answered, "Because this is going to be yours, Emily." "Then let me have it now," Emily said. "Someday," I said, "when the time comes." And I didn't give it to her. She pouted a bit, though she seemed to like the notion of a secret promise. She always liked that kind of things. Someday, when the time comes. When the time came that I had to tell her who her real father was. After I ran away from him, I started going out with my old friends. That felt like where I really belonged. I didn't have the strength to mourn a girl who had killed herself while simultaneously propping up a man who had lost his job. There was no way I could share miserable life with him, and the person my friends introduced me to then became my present husband. His grandfather was the founder of the Adachi manufacturing, and he had joined the company himself 5 years before. I thought his eyes were cold and that he was a little scary. And when I asked him, "Are there any other girls you like?" he said, "If there were, I wouldn't be here." "Then I'll be happy to go out with you," I said, bowing. He laughed cheerfully. "Same here," he said, holding out his hand. We shook hands on it, and that's when we started dating. I think it was on our third date. When we were out on a drive, I suddenly felt sick, asked him to pull over, and got out. I felt dizzy, collapsed on the spot. When I woke up, I was in a room in the nearest private hospital, and he was seated beside me. I quickly tried to sit up, and he told me to lie down and rest. "It's not good for the baby you are carrying," he said. I felt about to collapse again. A boyfriend I had never slept with, announcing that I was pregnant. "It's all over with us," I figured. "This is my punishment for having run away." God wasn't going to forgive me for forgetting everything and trying to be the one who ended up happy. I was more concerned at this point about my life from then on than my relationship with Adachi. What would my parents say when they found out? And other people that I knew? I knew I couldn't make it on my own. Assuming that my relationship with Adachi was over, I told him about the baby's father without touching on Akie. When I finished, Adachi said something that
bowled me over. Let's get married, he said. I'd like you to have the child as mine. He didn't say this out of love for me. He wasn't able to have children himself, probably because of a bout of mumps when he was in college. He hadn't been tested at hospital, he said, so it wasn't totally certain that was the cause, but it was certain that his sperm count was 0. He had used his own company's test kit, so there was no mistake. He was ambitious. He was the grandson of the founder, but he was the son of the founder's second son. The older brother's son would be the one set to inherit the company, but he was more able, he felt, than the other son, his cousin, and he swore to himself that he would someday become the company's president. But one day, half jokingly, he tested himself and found out that he was sterile. Who would allow a person who couldn't have any descendant to be their heir? Ever since then, he seemed to have given up on the idea of heading the company. Even after his friends introduced me to him, he said that he didn't intend to marry me. Then, he heard from the doctor that I was pregnant. We made a deal. He would provide me with a stable life for me, and I would help him with the win. He would provide a stable life for me, and I would help him win the trust of those around him. He quickly registered me in his family register as his wife. When the baby was born, presumably early, but still at normal weight for a full term, we told people that we had slept together from the start. And then we named the baby Emily. My husband's grandfather, the founder of the company, named her. Apparently, it was the name of a girl he fell in love with when he was studying abroad. But I always felt that Emily was mine alone. Not to imply that we weren't loved. Adachi took good care of me and loved Emily like his own daughter. I had no inkling that date was going to come, so that ring should still have been in the box with Akie's notebook in the back of the closet in our company's housing apartment where I put it. One day, there was a company party, and I thought I would wear a string of pearls and took my jewelry box from the back of the closet. And I noticed that the lid of the other box was askew. I took it out and found the ring, along with the case, gone, as well as the note from Akie. The next day, the ring was back, but the note wasn't. If Daddy found out that you love another man, he would be sad, Emily said. So I thought it would be better if I hide it somewhere else, outside of the house. I could get back the ring, but the note got thrown away. I'm so sorry. As she stood there crying, telling me this, I felt a wave of love for her. She had mistakenly thought that I had written the note, although my handwriting was never as beautiful as that. Emily had hidden the ring and the note in an abandoned cottage, and as he was searching for a suitable building for use for his free school, he discovered it there. Maybe he was searching for a place there, thinking that as he rebuilt his life, he would do it in a place that had some connection with Akie. I'm sure he was shocked at what he found. He just opened a cookie tin he happened to run across, only to find a ring that he remembered all too well, and a suicide note addressed to him. I think he realized right away that Akie had written it. After this, he probably started investigating things. He had lost the woman he loved and the job that he poured all his passion into. Should I be blamed for that too? Well, where was the woman who had stolen away everything precious to him and run away, and what was she doing now, and what was precious to her? Emily was murdered, all because of me. The four of you just happened to get involved, and what I said to you was unforgivable. You took it to heart and led me to the murderer. It's my turn now to do penance to you. After I left Yuka, I went to see him. Until I arrived at the free school, which had been widely reported about in the weekly magazines, my thoughts were about penance, about what I should do for the sake of you four. Should I hire a top lawyer and have all four of you declared innocent? Should I help pay for your living expenses or pay you compensation money? But doing any of that, I thought, would only earn your contempt. What? I had to do was none of those things, but rather confess my sins and tell the murderer, Hiroki Nanjo, the truth. You are Emily's father. And I did. I told him that clearly. I think you all know now, through TV and the newspapers, what happened to him afterward. And I think you can understand how I feel about that, even if I don't write about it here. I wonder if you have it in your hearts to forgive me, and whether you are freed now from the curse that had held you in its spell for many years. Signed, Asako Adachi.
Chapter 6. The final chapter. A summer sky as twilight approaches. They pass the lockback gate. And clamber over the chain link fence. 2 people. One of them carries an old, well-used volleyball, the other a small bouquet of flowers. They head to the school playground. They talk about beefing up anti-crime measures, but it's still easy to get in. Speaking of which, is it hard for you to be here? You don't feel traumatized or anything? I'm okay. What about you? Can you see things alright today? No problem. But I'm not confident we can do 100 times in a row for the very first time. We'll try as long as we need to, like on that day. The 2 of them lay their backs down at their feet and face each other. A white ball goes back and forth between them. 1, 2, 3. 51, 52, 53. 91, 92, 93. Ah! Sorry! The mishit ball rolls away. A ball rolling away. 5 children chasing it. A man in work clothes, Hiroaki Nanjo, picks up the ball. I'm here to check the ventilation fan for the changing room in the pool, but totally forgot to bring a ladder. We just need to tighten a few screws. Could one of you piggy right on my back shoulders and help out? The shortest girl takes the ball from him. To ride piggyback, I should do it since I'm the smallest. The tallest stepped forward. It will be a problem if you can't reach the fan, so should I go since I'm the tallest? A girl wearing glasses in the back interrupts. But can either of you twist a screw? I'm really good at it. But what will you do if the screw is too tight? I'm strong and I think I could handle it. The biggest girl says this loudly. Nanjo looks at the 5 children one by one. Can't be someone either too small or too big. I wouldn't want your glasses to fall off, and you look a little bit heavy. Maybe. He walks over to the most intelligent looking child, Emily. You are just right. Emily looks back anxiously at the other 4. The tallest girl claps her hand and speaks loudly. Then let's all help. Then the other children agree. Nanjo is nonplussed, but still he smiles. Thank you, but the changing room is cramped, and if too many go, it will be hard to work. I wouldn't want anyone to get hurt. So why don't you stay here? We'll be done real soon, and afterward I'll buy you all ice cream. The 4 children are delighted. Nanjo takes Emily by the hand and leaves, not knowing that they are related, father and child. 2 of them pick up the ball and started passing it back and forth again. 100! They take deep breaths. They pick up their bags, head for the gym, and sit down side by side on the steps to the entrance. So, what did the murder mean for us anyway? And the 15 years after, when I was reading the long letter from her, more of a memoir, really, since it was so long, it made me wonder what's the point of my life has been. Maybe I was a victim, and because I felt that way, that's why her words
weigh so heavily on me. Even so, we were just so caught up in it all. Normally, if you had done such awful things in your past, wouldn't you ask yourself right after the murder whether it was your fault? Yeah, but not thinking that was her way of dealing with life. If someone did ask themselves that, maybe it would mean they really didn't have anything like that in their past, I suppose. But I can't really blame her. She's the one who suffered the most, and it's also thanks to her that I can live an ordinary life now. They charged you with inflicting bodily injury, but you got probation, right? Right, because the cause of death was a loss of blood and he had stabbed himself. I never touched the knife, and kicking him in the face wasn't a direct cause of death. So the crime was inflicting bodily injury. She collected signatures for me. Some parents wrote petitions asking for leniency, and the lawyer said I should hold out until we could get a verdict of not guilty. But when they offered probation, I thought, okay, that's enough. I quit my job as a teacher too. What are you going to do now? I haven't decided yet. I would like to take time to consider things, including how my life would have turned out if that murder had never happened. I'm worried about the other two too. It's going to take more time for them. Self-defense and insanity, those are really hard to prove, but they did turn themselves in and didn't have intent to kill. And they have well-known lawyers defending them, so I think it will work out. I'm hopeful at least, but who knows? They'll do what their lawyers tell them to. So I think it will turn out to be okay. But I was kind of surprised that you had her find a lawyer for you. You thought I would turn her down? If it had been me, I would have. It's like I just decided to go ahead and accept her good intentions. I realized how powerless I was and gave up clinging to any stupid pride. And your case, I couldn't believe you got it to reduce to an accident. It seemed like you were going to admit that you pushed him down, even though you didn't have to, just to get back at her. Because it's not just me anymore. I'm a single mother, and it would be hard on my child to have a criminal for a mother. I see. You have really matured, haven't you? Actually, I think I can understand her feelings at the time Emily was killed. If I were in her shoes, I might have said the same sort of things to the kids she was playing with. Mothers are scary. Or tough, maybe? You're living with your parents, right? How many years will it be until your children is going to this school? Didn't you hear? Next March, they are going to close the school, declining birth rates. The kids in this town will commute by school bus to the next town over. The school buildings are old too, and they are going to tear the whole place down. That's why you got in touch with her? Sorry. And you said that all four of us should get together. No, it's okay. I'm glad that I could come here before it's gone. Let's put an end to it, the two of us. Right, it's all over. Before long, I imagine this town will be incorporated into another, and the town itself will no longer exist. It's too bad. I mean, since it's got the cleanest air in Japan, the clean air will still be here. The two of them smiled at each other. Greensleeves started to play quietly. Shall we go? They stood up and looked at the small bouquet. It's like the cake that time. You're right. I asked the florist to make up a bouquet that a 10-year-old girl would enjoy. Find the murderer before the statute of limitations is up. If you can't do that, then atone for what you have done in a way that I will accept. The two walked towards the pool. Let's pray for Emily. Why didn't we realize that back then? The one thing we should have done the most. Maybe we needed these 15 years to finally understand. The shadows lengthen along the playground, and twilight envelops the small town.
The end. Well, this is a lot more fucked up than confessions for sure. Oh my god. This is almost like old boy. Not as fucked up as old boy, but still just as fucked up. You guys caught that, right? The person who sexually assaulted and killed Emily is actually her own father. So the two of you here. What a fucking fucked up book. Damn, son. Seriously. Alright, Kanae Minato. About the author. Kanae Minato is an internationally best-selling novelist and former home economics teacher and housewife who wrote her first novel, Confessions Between Household Chores. This is very fucked up. This is more fucked up than I thought it would be. Seriously. Anyways. Oh, nice. It's just nice. 2 hours, 1 hour and a half after I started. The chapters are a lot shorter this time around. So I managed to finish at 1 o'clock. And nobody is here. So domestic. I guess you can say that. Man, you guys, seriously though. That was fucked up, man. It's almost as fucked up as oh boy. Imagine trying to get revenge on your ex-girlfriend and then by fucking assaulting and killing your ex-girlfriend's daughter only to find out that the daughter is actually his daughter. That's fucking insane. It's a quiet day today. Hump day is really hump day, huh? Nobody's really here. But that's okay. Yeah, this redemption thing is not working. I don't know why.
Have you ever had a dream that
I don't know why. I don't
you
like
can
seriously. You guys hear it?
you want to know
Microphone? Mic? What do you mean?
My microphone is low.
What? No way. Hello? Can you hear me? It's okay. I think I'm gonna end my stream now since there's nobody here, and I don't think anyone's gonna jump in anytime now. So I'm just gonna end my stream here, and then after that I'm just gonna chill today. Thank you so much for listening to the end of Penance.
Last two chapters, very fucked up chapters. A lot of insane revelation and all that shit. Thank you for being here, and I shall go and take a rest and have a good day. And I'll see you guys next time. I'll be away from the game
From tomorrow until 21st. So
I will do some IRL stream, but I'm not gonna promise anything. But yeah, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you guys, the two of you.
sorry. And I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.